I love brewing and building commander decks, but one of my main considerations when I'm thinking about building a new deck is how enjoyable is it going to be for myself or the people I'm playing with. So let's look at 3 categories of commanders that I personally try to avoid. Category 1, Glass Cannon. So these are commanders that are extremely important to their strategy to the point where if they're removed, their whole strategy falls apart because maybe all the cards in their deck are based exactly around them and what they're doing, and nothing else really has synergy because the whole point of the deck was using your commander's ability for some kind of payoff. A good example is Rowan, Scion of War. 3 mana, 1 a black and a red, legendary creature, human wizard, 4/2, menace. Tap. Spells you cast this turn that are black and or red cost X less to cast, where X is the amount of life you lost this turn. Activate only as a sorcery. So a friend of mine who's new to Magic wanted to build a commander deck of his own. He had picked up a few precons, but he was looking to build something from scratch, and he came across Rowan as one of the 2 commanders he was interested in building. And we tried to explain to him, like, hey, everyone's just going to kind of like kill you because they don't want you to pull off your combo and just end the game. It's going to be kind of an unfun deck probably to play because you either win or everyone just beats up on you and you lose. And that feeling he had where he's being told by people that play Commander, hey, you shouldn't build that thing, is exactly the thing I want to avoid for other people. Because you may not realize it, you're building a deck, you're looking for cool synergies, and then all of a sudden you play it and people are like, wow, that's miserable. Or people react to it a certain way and you're the one that had a miserable time. So I just want to avoid that for people. Category 2, mean or unfun play pattern. Fun is subjective, and there's a lot of legendary creatures that seem like cool build-arounds, but the result is if you do too much of the thing they want you to do, it becomes just straight resource denial and an unfun experience for your opponents. A good example of this is Fumulus the Infestation. 4 mana, 3 and a black, legendary creature, vampire insect, 2/2, flying, death touch. Whenever a player sacrifices a non-token creature, create a 1/1 black insect creature token with flying. Whenever an insect, leech, slug, or worm you control attacks, defending player loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. If Fumulus was just support for insect, leech, slug, and worm creatures, it would be a really cool commander. But instead, it wants players to sacrifice non-token creatures, which means you want to do that as often as possible so that you could generate more insects so that you can drain the table. And I think that leads to a really unfun play experience for your opponents. Category 3, commanders that are remove on sight. Now, not to confuse this with Category 1 where I talked about glass cannon commanders where your entire strategy just falls apart, I'm referring to commanders that if they stay on the battlefield, the amount of advantage they gain is just so insurmountable that you're unlikely to be able to win, therefore it has to be removed. It's not that it necessarily shuts down the person's entire deck, but their commander's just going to repeatedly be removed by everyone, and no matter what's going on the table, that's going to be the focus of everyone's removal. A good example of this is Joda the Unifier. 5 mana, white, blue, black, red, green, legendary creature, human wizard, 5/5. Legendary creatures you control get +X/+X, where X is the number of legendary creatures you control. Whenever you cast a legendary spell from your hand, exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a legendary non-land card with lesser mana value. You may cast the card without paying its mana cost. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. A friend of mine in my playgroup has a Joda the Unifier deck, and I've played against it many times and different variations of it, and I can tell you that if Joda stays on the battlefield, then the game isn't going to last very long and the Joda player is going to win. And because of this, whenever we play against Joda, everyone saves their removal and removes Joda. If he recasts Joda, we remove Joda again and rinse and repeat until Joda can't be cast anymore. And it ends up in a situation where, like, he didn't get to do the thing. The problem with commanders like Joda are if you do the thing, you probably just end up winning the game and overwhelming the table. So people have to remove it, and you have to just be accepting of that. Yeah, you could pack protection and different spells in your deck and stuff, but you have to understand if you build a commander like Joda that people will want to remove it, and it's just something you have to deal with. Which is why it was so surprising that they chose Joda the Unifier for the SpongeBob card, because people are going to play their SpongeBob deck and be like, oh, look at this cool, funny deck I made. And then people are just going to remove SpongeBob like repeatedly. And people are going to be like, oh, wow, do you really hate it that much? But in reality, it's actually just because it's such a powerful commander that it can't remain on the battlefield. You will often hear commander players say that they just want to do the thing. And that means they want their deck to function and work as intended. However, certain commanders lead to strategies that just don't allow other people to do their thing at all. And that's the kind of thing that I try to avoid when I'm choosing commanders to build. There's a lot of interesting builds that seem cool, and I'll start to put them together, and then I'm like, oh, this play pattern is gonna not be fun for the play group. And sometimes I'll run it by my friends. I'll be like, hey, what do you think about this commander or this play style? And I'll just get their feedback before I assemble the deck. I think one of the best feelings when it comes to building commander decks is when people really enjoy your deck and they're like, wow, that was a cool deck, can't wait to see it again, and stuff like that. So I don't want my deck to be like, wow, that was a miserable experience, thanks for wasting so much time of my life, I wish you wouldn't have done that. Let me know in the comments down below if there's any types of commanders you try to avoid. Thanks for watching, until next time.